Tonight, our presenter is fresh off the roads from driving back from Mexico. He helped lead an expedition that put Sistema Huautla back as the deepest cave in the Western Hemisphere. So, if everyone would please help me give a warm UT Grotto welcome to Chris Jewell. I'm assuming this is you. That's all you need up?
Yeah.
All right. And then I gotta make sure I do the lights correctly. I should have. Volume, audio. They're there.
Extra pressure.
I know. Well, I always have trouble with this part.
Clearly mean it.
Just hold it a second.
Really hold it.
Don't poke it.
I'm too.
Good. Well, Ernie told me you're really tame and not rowdy. I don't believe him now. So I want lots of noise and enjoy the presentation, hopefully. First, I want to say it's a real honour, actually, being invited to come and give this talk because of the history that's associated with this grotto and Texas caving and this cave. So, thank you very much. I also, I don't want to talk about the history of Sistema Huautla because there's some people in this room that know it a lot better than I do, and I'm liable to get heckled when I get it wrong. But for the interest of making sure we're all on the same page, I'm going to say a few words. And those people who do know better can heckle me at the appropriate points. Sistema Huautla is a big, deep cave in the Sierra Mazatec, which is down in Mexico in the state of Oaxaca. There's something like 17 entrances, last counted. No one corrected that. And probably if you like the main entrance, or the entrance which is, I think, second lowest down the mountainside, as it were, is Sotano San Agustin. And it's San Agustin that's seen a lot of the major expeditions and certainly the early trips. And it's the most direct route to actually get down to the sump where we were diving. A lot of the other entrances, a lot of the height in the system is actually because there are much higher entrances further up the mountainside. Water flows through the mountain down to the Santo Domingo Canyon. There are a couple of caves there, and those caves have been pushed and extended. But there is yet no connection. And obviously we were looking to crack on in San Agustin and try and get closer to some kind of connection. I think I'm right in saying that the first trip was in 1968?
66.
66. I knew it'd be somebody.
He was on it.
There we go, 66. So I'll just skip over that. But anyway, a long time ago. Okay. And Sistema Huautla was, for many, many years, the deepest cave in the Western Hemisphere until Sistema Cheve overtook. Anyone going to tell me which year that is? So I didn't look that up. 90? There you go. So Cheve was top dog for a little while until recently. So there's all this history of the cave system, but I confess the first I knew about it was when I read this book in 2008. It's a book that's written, I guess, for the members of the public as much as cavers. Slightly sensationalist in some areas, particularly the subtext of the title there, the world's most treacherous cave. So those of you that have been in there, you can obviously, I'm sure you can confirm that and tell us just how dangerous it was. But love it or hate it, this book, it certainly was the inspiration for me. It taught me about the cave. And then I went on to read, perhaps the more serious caving articles and the other literature on the cave system. But this is also the reason that I was able to put together a big team of cavers from the UK, because the guys have read this book, and it's inspired them to come on the trip. People want to walk into the pages of a book they've read and see the place themselves. So this book was written about the 1994 expedition, which Bill Stone led. Big expedition, of which the focus was to dive, we've got a mouse, here we go, dive the sump down here. This is I call it the main sump, it's sump 1, if you like, in the system. And until 94, no one had managed to crack that sump. So Stone put together a big high-tech expedition specifically to try and crack that sump. He put up a diving platform, a camp, up above that sump, called it Camp 5, and the divers lived there. And then he developed the cislunar rebreather for pushing the sumps. And, I think the cislunar is probably the forerunner of the modern recreational rebreather. and I think the rebreathers that we were diving on this trip probably have a lot to owe to Stone and his development in this area. Like I say, it was a big expedition. They got lots of publicity. It was a National Geographic trip, and they were very successful as well. You know, they pushed the cave hard, and they managed to pass the sumps. And then actually what they found is there's two sumps, sump 1 and sump 2, representing about 600 metres worth of diving. And beyond there they found over 3 kilometres of cave. They got two leads, or two key bits that were interesting for us and for going back on this trip. They were stopped at sump 9, which Stone called the mother of all sumps. He also said this was the most remote point reached inside the earth. Now, in the UK, we don't tend to come up with big brash statements quite like that. But when you're applying for sponsorship, that's brilliant. That's the easiest thing. I can just slap that up there. So I'm sure we'll get some press coverage out of going beyond the most remote point reached inside the earth as well. The other thing that they found was this bit here, the Rio Iglesia waterfall. So up on the surface, you've got two dough lines next to each other. One is Sotano San Agustin, and the other is the Rio Iglesia dough line with a stream running into it. In 2007, was it, Bill? Uh-huh. The guys managed to connect in Rio Iglesia into Sistema Huautla, but they did lose the water. And the belief's always been that the water coming in here at this point in the cave is actually the water from Rio Iglesia. So we had our two objectives: push the sump, climb the waterfall. And we had, something for some divers that were going to push the ultimate sump, and we had enough other people interested in that waterfall to put together a whole team. So that sounded great. And that's fine. In the UK, we've got all this diving kit. We've got, we can get hold of ropes. We can do we've got all the kit we need to do this expedition. Okay? All of it. In fact, all of there it is, sat in my lounge. Bags and bags of stuff, cylinders, compressors. We got the lot. Yeah, no problem. Well, yeah, one big problem. I live in England, and Mexico's a hell of a long way away. And all the stuff we tend to do is we fill our cars up, and we, get on the ferry, or we go through the tunnel, and we drive down to Europe, and we unload and we go caving. Just in the same way, a lot of you guys fill up your trucks in Texas and drive down to Mexico. To get from the UK to Mexico, that was the glitch, that was the problem. And for a while it really foxed us, and we were working out how to do it. We could ship the stuff directly to Mexico. We didn't know if we'd see it again if we did that. At least not in time for our expedition. We were a little bit worried about getting the gear out in time. And this is where two of your Grotto members came in to help us. We couldn't have done it. We seriously could not have done this trip without these two guys. So first, Ernie decided he was going to lend us his van to drive down, which is brilliant. And then Ron volunteered his address for us to send stuff to. I don't know if he was knowing what he was going to let himself in for. So back in England, this is my garage. It's a small garage for you guys. It's like a normal-sized garage in England. This is my garage full of 2 crates. So there's like 500 kilos worth of kit there, and it's about 2 meters cubed if you break it down. So we got that sent over to the US, over to Ron's address, and it arrived, I think, 3 days, was it, or 2 days before 2 days.
Before we were going to leave.
Yeah. So it was sent in plenty of time, I should stress. There was just some problems, but that gave me a few sleepless nights. And then, obviously we had all this gear, but we wanted to buy some stuff as well. And so rather than buy it and then send it, we thought we'd just buy it in the US. So I don't know, it was about 3 months long. I guess the mailman was coming to Ron's house every day with parcels.
The UPS guy, we were on first name basis. Partially because he delivered to the place where my daughter worked and he liked her.
So there's just mountains of gear. I don't know how many $1,000 worth of gear and how much weight, but huge piles of stuff was arriving in the post every day. We had stuff like rope. We had to get that all arranged. We used a company called Sterling that gave us a very good deal. So that came locally, but again, that all ended up at Ernie's and Ron's places and delivered. Even stuff like lead. So, I've got loads of diving lead in the UK. We can get hold of it relatively cheaply, and cave divers here will have their own little ways of getting sources of cheap lead. We needed loads of lead. There's £100 worth of lead here. So we worked out the cheapest way of getting it was reclaimed lead shot, which is great because some of you guys shoot lots of things. So apparently there's lots of it around. It's quite cheap, and so we bagged these things up. So there's £100 worth of lead shot there.
The Wimberley postal dude wasn't too happy. 100 pounds.
That's just for counterbalance.
Yeah, absolutely. This is diving lead. Yeah, so this is going on the divers, on the cylinders to get us underwater, and it all went down the cave, obviously. So £100 worth of lead went down the cave. I did mail order it. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing. Maybe I could have gone to the local gun club here, but there you go. And then we had to fill our cylinders. So we didn't want to be, going down to... you can't send the stuff on the ship full, so all the cylinders had to be sent empty. So I need to be able to fill everything in Texas. We didn't want to mess around in Mexico, get it filled. This company loaned us a compressor, and then we had some big industrial cylinders of oxygen and helium for our deep mixes and for our rebreathers. And actually Bill Stone arranged those for us through his lab. So we had all this kit piled up at Ernie's place, and basically we had a hectic 3 days filling cylinders, sorting out rope, making lead pouches, and packing the van. And that, if you take out Ernie's clutter around his house, the stuff in the middle is the gear that was eventually put in the van. We had a van and we had Ron's truck as well, but pretty much packed pretty well. There you go, not too bad, bit of space, and then you could even see out the back window, so we're doing okay. And then it all came back in Ernie's van, so that van really does just swallow gear. There we go. Yeah. So, I was a little bit stressed about this whole expedition, get all the stuff, it was complicated, and I thought once we get to Texas, once we get on the road, I can relax. Yeah, okay. So, we get the end of the first day, and we've broken down on a steep hill in Mexico, and I'm a bit twitchy about, all the problems in Mexico, and the thermostat's gone, and then the following day, Ron's alternator goes as well. So, I was having a few stressful moments, but thankfully, Ron is a dab hand as a mechanic, and you can get most stuff you need in Mexico, which is good because I'm pretty clueless when it comes to cars, so I'd have been struggling on my own. And then we got down to Huautla itself, and we had to do the usual shenanigans with paperwork, see the right people, and then we had to send Ernie back to Oaxaca with a sort of urgent mission to go and get his bit of paper. So we packed him up on a bus, he came back with the right bits of paper, we saw the Presidente, and I guess it was 2 or 3 days we had to wait, but we got our final permission letter, and off we went. Set up a couple of houses, nice houses in the village, concrete floor, brick building, tin roof. You've got electricity in there, as you see from the lights. You can get water outside, doesn't run all the time, but he's got a big storage tank, and just ideal. We had 2 of these houses, one set up as a cookhouse and an eating place and with expedition gear, and the other one just for sleeping. And then mission control kicked in, and there's me with the whiteboard. So one of the things about this trip was the scale of the logistics. We were trying to go, I suppose, further than that trip did in '94, and that trip in '94 was huge in scale, right? But we wanted to be more efficient because there's no way we had as much time, we didn't have as much money, we didn't have all that stuff. So we need to be more efficient. But I didn't have a camp manager. No one was going to sit on the surface and plan it all. So with the use of a few whiteboards and some strict instructions and some simple plans, we seemed to cope pretty well. And one of the key bits of it was this, and this is another whiteboard, and it's got a survey of the cave on it. And if you can see those little coloured dots, they're magnets. And I gave everybody on the expedition a magnet with their initials on, and when they went into the cave, the magnet went in, and when they came out of the cave, the magnet came out. So we had a nice visual representation of everybody in the cave. I don't know if you get those old war films where there's the guy with the stick sliding just like that, yeah? That was the idea, to slide the magnets around. The other reason I put this up is you've got these nice square boxes that I've drawn, and you see it says kit stage 1, you've got kit stage something, camp 3, you've got the sump. So we had this huge mountain of gear, we had all these people, and I was going to sit on the surface with the clipboard. So the idea was that people would move the kit down to these key kit staging points. So there we go. So our first kit staging point was this top of this 110 metre pitch. So you've got this nice section here called the Stairway to Hell. You've got the entrance and then the Stairway to Hell. So there's Ron with one of his cave packs enjoying the entrance. It's a beautiful entrance. If anyone's seen photos of it, and lots of them around in various books. It's called the Jungle Drop for obvious reasons. Lots of nice foliage, lots of plants and stuff. It got very muddy towards the end of the trip, but it's really impressive to look down into there. And then from the bottom looking up, the daylight spills in. You know, the foliage is gone. You've just got moss-covered rocks and just a sort of the damp shine from where there's been water. We bolted a route down the left-hand wall. And even as you go further down, that daylight just carries on spilling in and creates these lovely opportunity for nice photos. A little bit further, and rather than, you've got two options. You can carry on down the cave. There we are, down here, behind Dave, down here. And this is what they call the old route. And it was, go on Bill, what year did they find the Fool's Day? What year did you find it?
66. The
Fool's Day, yeah.
87.
87. So 87, the guys climbed up onto this sandy ledge you can see here, and they went off into the Fool's Day extension. And it's the Fool's Day which provides the most direct route down the cave, so that's why we use that. It's a really nice section of cave. You've got lots of short little pitches, probably most of them about less than 10 metres, some of them might be 15 metres. It's dry, it's an old fossil section. You've got some pools that you land in, and some pools that you traverse around. But generally you're staying pretty dry, and it's, like I say, it's not active. The pitches are pretty short, and we tend to be carrying our cave packs on our back for this section. You can get your feet against the wall the whole way. Just a word on the cave pack. So we had these 500 kilos worth of gear, and one of the things I worked out, I knew we were going to have this much kit, and I worked out roughly how many people we needed and how heavy the packs would be. So the idea, which we kind of stuck to, was aiming for packs between 16 and 18 kilos a piece. And if you double that, gives you in pounds, right? So 32 to whatever it is pounds. So pretty heavy packs, but if you can get them on your back the whole time, you don't feel so much of that weight. So we could in this section. And then you get to the first kit staging point, top of the 110 metre pitch. So you can see the rope in there, but obviously later on there's lots and lots of bags stashed up there. So that's bringing the guys down to this section. So most people would do, a trip in from here down to there. I know, a couple of hours out. It's a nice day's caving. And we use that to acclimatise people to the cave before they went any deeper. So that worked really well. 110, really good kit staging point. And then you're into what's called the bowl hole. The bowl hole is a big pitch series where you drop something like 300 metres through a series of pitches. Your first one, it's hard to see in this photo, but this is a 110 metre pitch, so a real big one, but broken up into lots of rebelays. And we rebolted the cave, we started rebolting it last year on a recon trip, and we carried on rebolting this year. So all of our pitches are broken up in lots of rebelays. The cave is now rigged for what I would say is kind of modern, if you like, inverted commas, European style SRT, so lots of rebelays. We're using relatively thin rope, but it's 10mm rope, just mainly because it's on this photo anyway, and then 9mm rope in other places. It's all rigged now with 3/8 of an inch stainless steel bolts, and the hangers are left in place. So the cave is now, I think, in a really good position for other groups to go and visit it and enjoy the cave. Then you get to a 60-metre pitch, really nice, impressive pitch, but very crumbly rock, so we're having to do this one at a time. And then a few corners later and a few short drops later, you get to this. And this is the space drop. So at the top, you start off in a nice, round shaft, and after about 20 metres, you just hit this ledge, and it's just this free-hanging rebelay, and below that it just bells out massively. Really big tunnel, and you're dropping into a place called Tommy's Borehole at this point. And just up the way, you've got our next kit staging point, the 620 depot, a nice car-sized boulder where we're stashing all the kit. So you've got a point down here, 620 metres down, hence the name. It is obvious. And most people we found could do that on a day trip. So people come in, heavy packs, go into the 620 depot, drop gear off and come out again. And that really helped us. If we get people to do that on a day trip, then it meant it was practical for people to come from camp up to the 620 depot and pick up those bags. Yeah. So if you're trying to picture, we've got 30 bags all weighing 16 to 18 kilos of diving kit. On top of that, we've got all the rope, we've got personal food, we've got beyond sump food, we've got camping kit. I think it works out as something like, 40 odd bags worth of stuff, and then then rope on top of that. So the volume and scale of it was massive. But by having these kit staging points, it made everything manageable. Below the 620, you've got the upper gorge. Beautiful bit of cave. You start to hit the streamway for the first time. Really exciting. Big river caving. Lots of water. And really nice limestone as well. Really bright white limestone. So it's quite cheery in a way. Very noisy, but still very pleasant. Again, we rebolted huge sections of this. So in the old days, I imagine there'd be a rope going straight down through the water, more or less. Someone can hear. Yeah, and now it's bolted to the side wall, so people can stay relatively dry, which obviously helps you account the big cave packs. Still very exciting, still good fun. You're still getting wet and stuff, being close to that river. And there you go. There's the picture shot from the bottom, where you can see, bolting up the side rather than straight down the middle. After that, you get this lovely section of cave called the Metro. Quite a big horizontal section where the river's calmed down a bit. Quite pleasant. You can walk down and enjoy it, and just really nice. And you get to the Metro, you're almost getting to camp. And Camp 3 is up in this nice little chamber. Here you go. What a really awesome camp. And for myself and certainly the other European cavers, all of us said this was the most comfortable, nicest cave camp we'd enjoyed. And probably not just the cave camp, that was being said about the whole cave. It was a real pleasure to go in there. But the cave camp was lovely for us. It was warm, comfortable. You could take your shoes and socks off and pad around on the dry sand. Gear dried out. And it was a real nice home for home. And actually, on the surface, you've got barking dogs and screaming kids and Mexicans. So you probably get a better night's sleep down at the camp, actually. And the food was almost as good, I suspect. The other great thing about Camp 3 is it's just so big you can accommodate lots of people. And I was very aware that with the volume of gear we wanted to shift down the cave, we needed lots of people to be able to be at that camp. We didn't want a bottleneck. We didn't want to be able to say, you can't come down, there's not enough camping gear. But I also didn't want people carrying their own camping kit down, because if they filled a whole bag of their own stuff, they weren't carrying my diver stuff, right? So we decided to kit out the camp, basically, for most people. People carried their own food, their thermals and stuff like that. But we laid out sleeping bags and mats and thermal rests. We had 8 communal sets of kit, and then the divers had their own stuff on top of that, so we could really fill camp. And in this particular photo, well, not quite in this whole photo, but on this night, we actually got 15 people down there using the camp, which, it's a lot of people. The next day we had 13 people go to the sump, and if 13 people go to the sump, that's 13 bags. It's like half the bags of diving kit. So, just the scale of it just meant we could shift that much kit. Below camp, you've got the lower gorge. It's a lot darker, narrower, and a lot noisier. You've got a lot more water in there. It's a lot more intimidating. You've got more water because you've got it coming in from the Nitananta waterfall. So you've got probably twice the volume, but yet you've got half the width of passage. So really quite an impressive, noisy place. That's a beautiful photo. I can tell you this is one of Elliot Stahl's photos, and he takes some very nice photos. There you go. In fact, this whole section is Elliot's ones. Here you go. So it's probably also the most physical section of the cave. You've got lots of fast-moving water squashed through narrow places. We're carrying these big cave packs. Some of the times we were trying to stay out of the water, and we had the whole section rigged so that if we did have some kind of flood or weather event on the surface, we'd actually be able to hopefully negotiate this section of cave. But often you'd get in the water and splash through. But like I say, certainly the most physical section, big cave packs, which you're trying to drag in and out of the water. And then you're down to the sump. which if you can kind of imagine that photo I showed earlier, you can probably picture the platform just above this guy's head. So that's where Stone and the guys had their camp 5. And the roof just dips down and just meets the water. It just gets narrow and meets the water. So this is where the diving comes in. So the big thing about this whole expedition was really getting past these sumps. These were the sumps that Stone cracked in 94. And they represent, I guess, the big obstacle in the cave. It's 600 metres worth of diving. The deepest point is 28 metres, although a lot of it is shallower than that. But it is certainly a major obstacle just for getting into the further reaches. 3 big problems we had, or 3 problems we knew we faced. One was like, what do you use to dive that sump? You know, what's the configuration? You know, who do you put through there? How many people? All this stuff. What kit do they use? That kit's got to be carried down the cave. The other one, fine, you get your people through. Like, you know, unless they're going to go there in a day and come back again, they're going to want to camp, right? So Camp 6, we wanted to get a team of people to Camp 6 for a week. And that meant having something to put their sleeping bags in, their mats in, their food and all this stuff in. It needed to be reliable, right? You know, I played around with some Nalgene's, bit iffy. Played around with some, we call them rocket tubes in the UK, bit iffy. Down drums, no good. Ammo tins, heavy. Lots of problems. So, fortunately, we do have a solution. Oh, I've skipped one. All right. So we got a solution to that one. And then the final thing is, just like Stone had a platform, there's actually nowhere to kit up at when you get to the sump. There's basically no dry land. And there was, you know, both myself and Jason both said to each other, we can't believe there's really no dry land. But one of the guys on our trip who'd actually been to the sump, he said, no, really, guys, you need a platform. And we talked. Stone had told us you can use his old platform, and we ummed and ahed, and we thought, well, if it's trashed, you know, we know we're stuffed, right? So our platform we had made for this trip was actually just a big square piece of tarpaulin, very strong tarpaulin, made for rope access work. And then what you've got there is just ratchet straps just to the corners. So it's got no poles, no rigid bits to it at all. So it packs up really small. And the ratchet straps actually they do run underneath the material there. So you've got a crisscross of webbing. And actually you can see, I mean, there's 2 people sat on there. Like, we'd have like 4 or 5 people wandering around, you know, on there, you know, hanging on the edges and stuff. We packed the dry tubes on there, we got changed on there, built the rebreathers, the whole work. So that platform was a lifesaver. And you know, I'm very lucky that the guys said to me, you know, you need this, I'm going to make you one. So that was the one problem. The other problem was, how do we get our camping kit through? So dry tubes is our solution. And Jason Mallinson, who was the other lead diver on this trip, he's used dry tubes a lot on some of the big expeditions he's done in Spain, although dive these kind of things are sort of 80, 90 metres and drag them through very long sumps. So he said he's fine. He said, right, I'm going to build these dry tubes. The problem with the dry tubes is, you know, this is like 60, 70 centimetres long, 200 mil diameter inside, made of quite thick plastic. The thing weighs empty about 13 kilos, you know, and it was, multiply it by 2, get in pounds, and then you've got to carry it down the cave, right? And of course, it doesn't really go in a tackle bag, so the guy on the right is Connor, and we got some military pack frames, just so they could wear them. And actually, they were brilliant, you know, some big ratchet straps, and you could ratchet these things on nice and tight, and you could wear them down the cave. Despite the fact they weigh 13 kilos empty, and despite the fact that you can then put, you know, 10 kilos worth of stuff inside them, they float, because it's just like a big tube full of stuff, right? Especially packed full of noodles and food. So the next problem is, well, how do you sink these things? And the divers in the room will be able to do the maths and work out, based on the volume of that, how much lead, but it's a lot of lead. And there was no way we were going to carry this much lead down. So I was a bit dubious, but Jason said to me, I've got a plan. We're going to sink them with rocks. You sink them with what? That's a lot of rocks, Jason. It's like, he had a plan, and we tested this. So we got the biggest cave packs we could, and we filled them with rocks. And these are like, you know, Ron's big packs are like these ones, like this big, you know, huge packs filled with rocks, and then they're strung along the bottom of these dry tubes. Okay, so there's 3 of them there. Okay, there's another dry tube packed. So you've got this tube that's already pretty big, with a bag that's massive, full of stones. Then, of course, you stick your other packs on the side of it, the ones that have got stuff that doesn't matter if it gets wet, on the side, your line reel, your other things. These things are probably 3 times the width of the tube, and probably about as wide as a diver. So the inertia, I can tell you, we told a lot of these through. The inertia when you got in the water and you started swimming and you thought, am I stuck? And you turn around, no, it's just this thing just wasn't moving, you know. You had to get it going. And once you got it going, it wasn't too bad, but all the divers didn't enjoy these. This is coming back. And the other thing, I hadn't used dry tubes before, so Jason gave me a little quiet lecture. And it's sort of like, you know, fine, you fill this thing so it sinks, but if it's not level, it's a nightmare. So you've always got to have these little rocks and pouts, you know, to trim it out. You're there in the sump pool, and you're putting a rock in the middle, no, near one end, near the other end, just trying to get the whole thing to balance. So you can see. And attach your rocks very well. That's what I say, right? Jason had a rock come off halfway through the sump, and he didn't enjoy it after that. So attach your rocks carefully. But they're big things, yeah? Okay, cool. Right, I've got some video. This is us surfacing, having carried... There we go. Us surfacing, having carried the dry tubes through. You see me, that's a big dry tube on the left. You can see tackle bag underneath from the rocks. It's Miric's side mount rebreather, and he's got his dry tube on the other side. And if you listen very carefully to what Miric says in a minute,
Good night.
I was a no. Yeah, it's hard work with those tubes. And he's in a wetsuit, it's reasonably chilly. And I'd already taken one tube through, so I knew what to expect at this point. So I'd had a better experience.
Good night, Chris. Good night, Chris.
See Jon taking the bungees off the tubes. And there you go. So, through the other side, and I tell you, it was the first. Well, I felt pretty relieved. You know, I'd planned this trip, and I'd promised these guys I'd get them there, and we'd go off and explore and have a real good time. And I was quite relaxed when we finally got a team of 5 people set up beyond that sump. And I think there were points when people said that was a lot of people, it's too many people to try and do it. But the way it worked out, we managed to get all 5 through them in one go with all the supplies. And we took through, there were 6 dry tubes worth of stuff to come in. And those 6 dry tubes kind of helps us decide how to do the diving. So Stone used rebreathers to crack this sumps 1 and 2 in 94. And rebreathers sound like the perfect solution. It's great, you can just breathe forever, it's brilliant, fine. It's not quite the way it works, unfortunately. The problem with rebreathers is that they still weigh quite a lot. And the thing about rebreathers is you still have to have bailout gas to get you home again. Yeah, you still need to have that gas to escape and be safe. And when I planned this trip, I thought, well, if everybody takes a rebreather down, then they'll take that bailout gas. Right, well, that's quite heavy, it's quite a lot of stuff. Do we actually need that many people to have rebreathers? Is it worth it? Well, we needed enough rebreather divers to take the dry tubes through, and we knew about maybe 6 dry tubes loads worth, so 3 divers do 2 dives each. Yeah, that works. We needed rebreathers to push the final sump, 2 rebreather divers in the final sump, so that works. And we had 2 other guys, and, well, I worked out we didn't really need them to have rebreathers to do this. They could dive this sumps 1 and 2, on open circuit gear, dive through, not taking any gear, not taking any of the camping stuff. They could drop their kit off there, spend 1 week beyond, and they could dive back. And actually, it would actually be lighter, in terms of equipment to carry down the cave, for them to do that, than for those guys to have rebreathers just for that 1 dive through and the 1 dive back. So that's what we did. But, it took a lot of convincing. Some people kind of think we're a bit crazy to try and do this kind of cave without all rebreathers. We pitched up at Camp 6, you can see in the photo here, Stone's old Camp 6, really nice spot. and which we enjoyed very much. We did debate moving the camp further down the cave, but we figured we'd lose a whole day carrying stuff when we could just walk down with just our exploration kit. So we stuck to Camp 6, and off we went. You've got a few obstacles on the way down to Sump 9. Beyond this is everything here is beyond the Sumps 1 and Sump 2. Your first is Four Corners Lake, which makes an interesting obstacle, bit of swimming, and an opportunity for a nice photo or two as well. So, there you go. Then you hit Perseverance Hall, and we didn't know about this bit. Maybe I missed it in the book, but we got the original survey notes of Bill, and he sketched on this thing called the Centurion, which we're guessing is this. We got here in this lovely formation, which was a great landmark up in Perseverance Hall. We could follow. Down below Perseverance Hall, you hit a load of just sort of slightly smaller passages, with lots of lakes, lots of swims, really nice clear water. Some of the time you're wading, sometimes you're swimming, sometimes it's just knee deep. Let's say pretty bits of cave. And then the odd pitch. I mean, we carried 250 metres of 8mm rope through the sump. Some of the stuff that Stone had used in '94 was still intact, so we used that where we judged it safe enough for traverse lines or swims or whatever. But any of the proper pitches we put our own rope in, and we still saved enough for exploration work. Pitch on the left, when we got there, they're both very short pitches, 5 or 6 metres at most. But the pitch on the left had the stainless steel, had the aluminium Petzl hangers still intact. Well, I say still intact. They looked like that. And the mayons that had been screwed into the bottom obviously been left there with the rope. And over the years, the water just rushing down that bit, and it's completely dry when we're there. So you can imagine it, in winter time or flood time. The mayons are just scored out and cut right through there. You then get to this bit. This is called the low airspace swim. It's not the bit where Jason is in the photo, but straight up behind him there. And if you remember Stone's book about '94 trip, they found this low airspace swim, put a rope through it. His rope is the orange rope, it's still there. And we managed to tag a bit of our rope in just to make it reach. We did have some fun and games. Not too bad with this bit, but whilst we were beyond the sump, we had some rain going on the surface. And the first we knew about it was when some of these swims with, low-ish roofs started to get a little bit smaller. Gave us a few twitchy moments. But it never closed down, be pleased to hear. And then we got to the Rio Glacier waterfall. So this had been the objective for our non-lead, non-push divers for all these months whilst we were planning the trip. However, on the way down to route finding Sump 9, initially, Jason actually managed to bypass this climb. Okay, he's went up a passage, turned left, and before he realised it, he was at the top of here. So the rope rigged here is us on the return, making it an easier route down, and, for a nice photo. Unfortunately, at the top of this pitch, just round the corner, all this water comes out of a boulder choke. We've got maybe about 50 metres of passage, and the whole thing's just choked. So, we have this big lead, this big objective, which basically wiped out at the end of the first day of exploration. So that was tough on on these guys, but also it meant we could move on, look for other leads, and find other stuff, and we did find plenty. And then down to Sump 9 itself. A massive lake. I want to describe you come down you walk into a big chamber, and just down below you've got a huge expanse of black, and as you get closer and your lights start to pick it out, you realise it's just water. And this thing is probably, 25 metres across by 40 plus metres wide. It's just a huge, huge lake. And you don't even know it's a sump, but you're aware that there's water trickling in down through the boulders on one side or coming up through one side.
Are those rafts?
Are those what, sorry?
Calcite rafts?
They're just bits of mud and scum, to be honest with you. Nothing so glamorous as attractive. Just bits of mud and dust that flakes away. I'd like to see, we'll get a bit closer in a minute. So we put Jason in the water for the first push dive. We carried his kit down on day 1, carried my kit down on day 2. You see Jason there just at the water's edge, getting geared up. And he did his first dive, and he got down to 30 metres. Now we were aware, because Bill Steele had prompted us several times, that Sistema Huautla was only 9 meters deeper than the Sistema Cheve. So we just need to do a 9 meter dive, 10 meter, we said, 10 meter dive in Huautla to get that depth record back. So Jason's 30 meter dive on the first day was enough to cinch it. So we knew we were onto good things after that. Here we go. So yeah, he got in the water and did his dive. First dive was very tough, a lot of bad visibility. You got really steeply sloping sides, and on the way down, he thinks he must have dislodged something, and when he got to this 30 metres, it was just a swirling mass of muck and silt, and basically couldn't find the way on and came back, and we just treated it as a recon dive. You can see it, yeah, you can see just even on the right-hand side there, it just shelves off really steeply, and you basically get straight down from that sump pool, almost straight down to 30 metres. Do you want to? Should we? No? No? Sure? Okay, good. Right, and there he is going off on his dive. This isn't the first dive, this is the later dive, which I'll explain the rope later. We don't usually go on the first dive with rope, but there is a reason for it a little bit later. Cool. Right, more video. Where we go? Okay. There we go. So I'm going to talk over this one. I'll set down a little bit. Be back here and there. So after the first dive, it was my turn. So we took it in turns to dive in the sump, basically. And set that a little bit more. So I got in. Now Jason hadn't found the way on, and he said it was a bit of a mess. So we had a new plan. I was going to lay a brand new line from surface and follow the right-hand wall. So I got in and I laid the line down the right-hand wall, and I got to 50 metres, or 48 metres I think, and started to come up. And I actually managed to surface in a passage. Okay, so we dived sump 9, and I actually managed to come up to surface, do a bit of decompression, and came up to surface. And I surfaced in this muddy, muck-filled tube, no active flow, completely static. But we did wonder whether, I'm thinking, well, okay, it's static, but it might break through. So after doing a load of climbing around up this muddy slope in my dry suit, I concluded it was just about still going. So Jason's turn to dive next. He went in. This is why he had the rope on his cylinder. I told him how nasty this muddy section was, how slippery it was. And so he took a rope so he could actually rig this. Got out of his rebreather, got out of his dry suit, and actually had a good look round. And unfortunately, all the leads in that section closed down. So we knew somewhere underwater was the main continuation. You know, the flow wasn't going to this muddy pool. The flow was going elsewhere. And so we had to hatch a plan to find the flow. And the film you're seeing now is on, I feel like, dive 5 and 6, where we dive together. Normally we do all our dives solo, but we decided to dive together purely to try and find the way on. Jason went down the left-hand wall, laying, again, a brand new line. I went down the right-hand wall on my old line that I'd laid previously. And by being on either side of the passage, we figured we'd spot any underwater continuation, any tunnel. And we did. At minus 45 metres, Jason found this tunnel going off to the left. He found a really nice erosion feature underwater, and he knew that's where the flow was going. He shot across. I started laying line to catch up with him. We tied off together, and we headed down this tunnel. And we both got to about minus 60 metres on that dive. We surveyed back, and what you're getting here is the video of him and I doing a bit of deco. And it was about, I think it was a 2-hour dive in total for this. So we knew then we'd found the main way on. He was going in at 60 metres, but we only had one more day's diving at this point. You know, this was, I feel like, our penultimate dive. So the plan was hatched for us to both dive again. Oh, there we go. That one. The following day. And that meant more supplies. We took down fresh oxygen. We replaced the softer lime in the rebreathers, extra bailout cylinders. I took down a second rebreather. I actually had 2 rebreathers that I dived at the same time. So we had everything kitted up for this big final push. But again, to make the most of our dives, we always choose, if you like, in this case, to dive solo. So Jason was first man in the water, and he got to 60 metres, started laying line, and he was about 300 metres into the sump when he started. And 140 metres later, at 440 metres from the surface, he was at 81 metres. Unfortunately for us, we basically planned for 80, and we had one bottle of trimix that would take us to 85. but that was back up at camp, and we'd planned really to allow for like around 80-ish metre dives. So when he came back to surface, although we had more supplies for diving, depth was our issue. We didn't have the gas, certainly in the sump then, to go any deeper, and even in the cave, we could have gone another 4 metres. And from his descriptions of the sump, there's no way that was going to, start going up in another 4 metres depth. It was just carrying on down. He was in the roof, big flat slab, a big flat roof, like a big slab, and he was just trending down at a nice angle, just constantly adding depth. So, his words to me after his dive were, there's probably like, a 100-metre dive there. You never know that until you go, but there's at least, I'm sure there's an 80-metre dive, a 90-metre dive there. He did his big dive, and he was obviously really happy, as you can tell. Those that have...
Smile I saw.
There is, yeah. I'd say, so those of you that have met Jason, this is a normal expression for Jason when he's really happy. He was probably quite tired, actually, and I did make him pose for like quite a while. I took photos of him and everything. It's like, this is important, I've got to get the photos. The sponsors need the photos. So there we go. But anyway, so that was the dive. Meanwhile, we're cavers, we're not just divers, and I was just as excited by the potential for dry extensions to this bit of the cave. In fact, I was really excited the guys might find a bypass or something, because that would make it really easy. So we dispatched, these guys were busy, our other diving team were all busy the whole time we were diving, trying to find leads, looking for things. They were aid climbing where they had to, doing all sorts to extend the cave. The biggest extensions that we found were actually up in a chamber behind sump 9, small chamber that dropped into a big extension of passages that ran off, and they got something like 1,700 metres worth of dry passage up in this section. So there's a lot of cave to find and survey up there. There we go. So this is the survey beforehand. This is Bill's survey, a stone survey from '94. And down here's sump 9, going off this way. And you've actually got the passage that the guys found. It's probably around about here. And it ran off and ran in a series of zigzags up above all these chambers here. And actually in several places dropped back into bits of known cave. So it was all high-level stuff running along this, whether it's some kind of fault or certainly some kind of feature, geological feature, that just meant that everything just wouldn't go past that point. It was just running up and down on that line. But there was one mystery. They'd done all this surveying, and it was the final day, and they dropped various pictures that kept going back into stuff we'd already seen, and they were getting a little bit like, it's just going to drop back in, everything's going to drop back in. And they found a pitch, and they thought, we'll throw a rock down, like a nice, brightly coloured rock, or a white rock, and we'll see that rock later. And they worked out from the survey, it's going to be somewhere we've already been. Of course, they never found that rock. And when we came back and we plotted the survey data, their bit of passage is just off into something new. So it never got dropped. So there is a question mark still down there, basically. Just the three guys. We've got Rich Hudson from the UK on the left, Jon Lillestolen from Virginia in the middle, and Mirek Kobotowski, Polish, cave diver on the right-hand side, doing his station marking. I just realised, in a second I'll get there. In fact, it was a nice borehole. Right? Some nice big passage that the guys managed to bag. What's the phrase? It's scoop booty? Is that your... There you go. See, I'm learning American. Some of it is really nice. They got very excited when they found this bit. It was really cool. Some of it a bit smaller. But then to prove that we do, get rid of all the leads, even the scrotty little holes back here got checked. So there was some crawling as well. Went all the way to do some crawling. I confess, Walls is on my laptop, it's not on here. I was going to show you some survey data. I might see if we do it at the end of the presentation to show you the actual surveys. So I sketched this up. This is not a proper survey, but basically, there you go. Down here, 440 metres from base, minus 81 metres our limit. And then this is kind of represents the stuff that they had going on over the top. Like I say, it's basically 17, give or take, it's about 1,500 metres of passage up there, and the other stuff was fjords and sods that they surveyed. So that's how we left it.
How much further than
I'll get to the depth bit in a minute. Yeah, it's interesting, right? So yeah, we can. Yeah, everybody remember some numbers, right? 81 meters. That's what means you can test your maths, right? Then it's time to go home. So we had a week beyond the sump, and we were all ready to go. We planned for a week. That was the original objective, and we laid out this trip. And we said, what we're going to do? We're going to put a team beyond here for a week. That was basically the deal. So we stuck to that, and we didn't really have a flexibility in that, but we did manage to let the guys know when we were coming home. And what's going on here? This is a Nicola radio, a cave radio, developed in France for use in the Berger, mainly for rescues. Got a 1,000-metre range, and these are low frequency cave radio with ground aerials. So there isn't a wire. We didn't run any wires down the cave. We didn't run any wires through the sump. These are set up, they've got, I think, 50-metre aerials that stretch out. So you've got 100 metres worth of thin wire that you lay out. We tried to use them from Camp 3 to the surface with no joy, but we got them to work perfectly from Camp 3 to Camp 6. So whilst we were beyond the sump, we could check in every night or every morning, speak to the guys, let them know what was going on, and we also could prep them to say when we were coming back. Because we wanted really to come back and just start moving the stuff out of the cave. We were on a relatively tight schedule. And so we could use the Nicolas to get prepared. So there you go, packed up to go back. There's John with his diving kit on. That was a photo for the sponsors. Mirek with his side mount rebreather, which is in a bit of drain pipe. We do like that. And then packing the dry tubes to come back. So he did take the 6 through. Obviously ate the food. So 4 dry tubes worth of stuff came back. 3 rebreather divers. That meant Muggins here had to be the extra ferrier and do 1 more extra dive to bring the 4th dry tube back. And you can even see, there you go, Jason's dry tube's packed, ready to go back. We like to cave in our wellies. I actually dive in mine, but Jason doesn't, so we have to put them on his dry tube. You see it there. And then managed to snap this photo on the way back. Interesting, the whole time the visibility in the sumps was, I guess, a bit disappointing. This is probably typical. It's about 5 metres visibility. I guess that explains why we had difficulty locating the way on in Sump 9 initially. And even coming back through Sumps 1 and 2, the viz was generally pretty poor. So yeah, that gave us some troubles. Here you go, some final stats. So yeah, 1,774 metres of dry stuff and 440 metres of sump. And I'm afraid I didn't put together a whole set of photos, but there's 519 metres of cave that were found in the old route. So after we de-rigged the cave and we started bringing everything out, Bill Steele showed up with Tommy Shiflett and a couple of other guys and did some of their own exploration, went down the old route, and just by searching for a few leads and a few windows that they'd seen, picked up half a kilometre of cave, just in a couple of trips, surveying trips. So it just goes to show there's still lots to be found when you look up, right? Bright lights, look up, and you'll still find stuff. I'm really pleased. I'm going to talk about the days underground. I'm really pleased that we managed to limit our number of days underground in one hit. I've got a belief that if you spend long time underground, you stay long camps, your body deteriorates, you get bored, mentally you're tired, you need to come to surface and recuperate. So the whole trip was about prepping as much kit as possible, go out to the surface as quickly as possible, spend days, recover, go through, do the business, push the cave hard, come back out again. And we managed to do that with our diving team, basically doing 11 days maximum stay underground. And you put all that together with the depths and the dives, we've got a new depth of the system of 1,545 metres. So that's highest entrance to Jason's final point in that sump. Now, Jason's dive was 81 metres. However, the cave is now only 71 metres deeper. Anyone like to guess what's gone on? No?
The sump was high.
Well, the thing is, so some water change, right? There were levels change. So we obviously had to survey back to a point in dry land, right? Yeah. So to deal with the depth in water. So no, it's not the change in sump depth. When we interrogated the 94 data, there's an unusual survey leg put in right at the end, which is an underwater survey leg. So I'll leave you to ponder that one. There's an underwater survey leg from 94. They didn't dive. There you go. Anyway, so it's fine anyway. We had a lot of people go down the cave with lots of packs to begin with, full heavy packs, and we had lots of empty hands for coming out. And we thought this was a great opportunity to do a bit of a tidy up job in the cave. So we started bringing out old rope. We brought out old Nalgene. You see an old Nalgene on the right hand side there. Old sleeping bags from '94. Various bits of kit. So we're very pleased. As far as I'm concerned, the cave now is left in a really nice, clean position for future generations and future teams to carry on exploring and enjoying. This is what we saw when we got to Camp 3. You know, some of that might have been usable, but not after 20 years. And okay, they didn't know it was going to be 20 years, so you know, arguments for leaving some of that stuff. But you know, when you've got empty packs going out, and we had enough bodies, we shifted that out and cleaned it up. There is one item that remains down there, which I don't mind too much in a way. This is the hydroelectric generator from 1994. It's a big, heavy lump of metal, and it was, you know, last on our list of things to go out, and you know, basically, you know, it stayed last and didn't come out. But I'm happy that if that stays in there, it's a piece of, if you like, expedition archaeology for future generations to look at and remark upon, and cast their own judgments so that, as to the wisdom or not. So no, that's still there. There you go. Right, I'm also at the end of the trip. You've got to have some rest and relaxation on a trip like this. We're in Mexico. We're on holiday. Well, I've got this time off work. I'm going to enjoy myself. Anybody who doesn't know the answer, know the answer, I'm going to guess why I'm like this. No? Can't. Imagine it's a sport. What's that? That's the answer. There you go. You call it soccer, but it's football. Okay. So we yeah. There is a fence. Yeah. I volunteered us for the local five-a-side tournament, which everyone else thought was great. And I put in one team, and then the local kids were like, you know, in Spanish, and Chris, will you give us some more players to? Well, we haven't got that many players. Doesn't matter, use the same ones. What if we have to play each other? Like, it won't happen. So Muggins here, again, I played twice, as did a couple of other people, but most of us played once. And got thoroughly thrashed by a bunch of, like, teenagers. And we're English, we're supposed to be good at this.
Let me tell you, no one here knows about soccer. Just to give you an idea.
So yeah, very badly beaten. But it's a very good thing that we did this game at the end of the expedition, because I'll tell you, soccer, is much more dangerous than cave diving. Okay? Like, all the guys end up with proper injuries, grazed knees, one guy's limping around with ice on his leg and stuff, so I almost killed the expedition through a game of football. We also had a birthday whilst we were out there. Connor Rowe had his 21st birthday. He visited the sump beforehand, so we think he's the youngest person to visit the sump. He's 20 when he got there, so I thought that was pretty cool. We made a real fuss of him, bought cake, put balloons up, and Elliot Stahl, for those of you who know him, plays a bit of guitar and entertained us on a very boozy, drunken night. And we sampled some of its mezcal. I highly recommend this. It's good stuff. Good stuff. There was one item that we found at Camp 3 which wasn't garbage. And we found this Nalgene, and by unscrewing the lid, you could smell this rather nice lemony flavour. And we decided it was probably lemon tang. And we worked out it must have been... yes. We know what it is, really, but we thought it was probably lemon tang at this point. And we decided it must have been Bill Stone's tang. So the call around the campfire would be, pass Stone's tang, and you get this shot of lemon tang. And I decided it must have superpowers. So we got a nickname, Super Tang. And Super Tang goes very well with mezcal, I can tell you. So it came out, and right now it was carried over to J2 by Elliot Stahl, so that Stone can have some of his 19-year-old tang. I did find out it's actually Crystal Light, but there you go. Won't lose the name. Cool. I'm now wrapping up, so I've just got a load of thank yous to do, basically. back to these two guys, I mean it, the expedition could not have happened without these two guys. And Ernie, bless him, we drove the truck down all together, and the plan was for me to drive back on my own, and he could tell I was petrified of driving his truck all the way back through Mexico on my own, and he volunteered, and he got the bus down, some epic bus ride, all the way to Huautla, so he could help drive back with me. So thank you, Ernie.
Ernie's awesome!
I'm also going to thank these two guys on the left, Bill Steele, who I first got. The first contact I had with Bill Steele was when I put this website up, saying we do all this stuff, and look at us. And he very politely emailed me and said, "You spelled Huautla wrong." Somewhere in there, like page 5 in the bottom, he spotted it. So I was very honoured actually to get an email from from Bill, and I appreciate it. And I went through and made several corrections we had to make, but I was pleased to get them right. And on the right hand side, obviously Bill Stone, who was fantastically helpful in this whole trip. I'd email him questions like, how much lead do you leave and all this sort of stuff, and I'd get back pages of answers. He'd look up in his notebooks, original logbooks and stuff. So. I really the guys organised his own expedition, often J2, and he managed to find time to answer my questions in a lot of detail. Wish us lots of luck, and I was, it was nice for me. I got a chance to meet Bill up at J2, so thank you very much, sir. I haven't got photos, but I'm going to say thank you generally to lots of people that have been helpful on this trip. When we came out here originally, I was hosted very nicely on the first night by Gil. Put us up, and we had a nice party there. I've seen lots of Terry Holsinger. He's been coming around helping us out. We've had lots of help from Don Brassard, and obviously people like the MCS through Bill have been fantastic as well. So lots and lots of support, and I really appreciate that's come from you guys from Texas Cavers. So thank you to all of you, really.
Chris,
yeah?
I think it's important.
Please.
We recognize Bill Russell, who discovered Huautla Cave here.
Please.
Yeah.
And that's a good point probably for me to say. I'm very aware that all we did was do another chapter in an ongoing story. This cave has been explored for generations and generations of cavers, many, many years, and we're doing our bit of work on their hard work, and I'm always very aware of that. So that's an important thing to say. Just to wrap up, I've got a couple of slides. These are all the guys that helped out in the 2013 trip. There's something like 47 names up there, I think. I tried to count them earlier. It's a lot of people. It was nice for us. We managed to get the first 4 Mexican cavers to visit the sump, come on our trip, and that was great. So those guys are in there, and they came down and carried some bags, and they're a good part of the expedition. Lots of people there: US cavers, UK cavers, Canadians, a couple of Polish guys, and the Mexican guys as well. So a really nice international team. And then just the final one, you've got to do it. But thanks to the sponsors. They're very helpful to me, and like I say. Bill Stone's the most remote point reached inside the earth was a very handy hook to drag these guys in. Very good. Thank you very much. That's all done.
Do we have questions for Chris? Bring up the lights here. Any questions, Matt?
Why do you dive 2 rebreathers? That seems interesting to me.
It's a bailout rebreather, main rebreather, bailout rebreather. You just so otherwise, usually in rebreather diving, your distance in is limited by your bailout getting out, or should be, right? You've got to make sure you've got enough gas to get out. 2 rebreathers, then your limits start to get different. The limits are based on the length of the scrubber time and stuff. So that was the plan. Side mount rebreather, back mount rebreather.
Galen?
When are you going back?
What are you going back?
That's my favorite question for all that.
It's I keep telling people like 5 to 10 years. The thing about this trip is we got a load of people coming on this trip because no one had been down that cave, down to the sump for 19 years basically. So it was on everybody's tick list. Everybody wanted to do it. Those guys have done it now. We might get a different team on to do it next time, but I think it's a hard project to roll on every year, especially now that the lead is such a niche lead. It's a hell of a long way to go for a very big dive with who knows what chance of success. Right. So the answer is, I guess the people involved in this, myself and Jason, will move on to other projects in Europe, go around, do other stuff, maybe other stuff in Mexico. And maybe this will come back around in the circle and we'll look at it in a few years' time and say, oh yeah, it'd be kind of cool to do a big dive there. Or maybe go to Pino Colorado. It'd be kind of cool to do a big dive there. But it's one of the nice things that I've picked up, and this is from Bill Steele. He's been talking now about making an annual trip down to Huautla. Not to try and do stuff, the diving stuff at the bottom, but to look at the other leads that might be in the system, the higher entrances, perhaps go further up in Agua de Cerro. Supposed to be potential to connect the cave through there. So exploration in Sistema Huautla has got lots more potential, and maybe that sump eventually. But for me, I'm putting that sump on the back burner for a little while.
Chris, I'm sure Andy Agustin can't ask you this question, but the scorpion you guys saw underwater, did you get a picture of that?
I have no photo of it. I'll fill the guys in. So Jason and I, we're doing a decompression, 6 meters, long dive, and you're trying to think of other stuff and kind of, whatever. And Jason's like waving at me, like, come over. So I swim over. And he's got very excited, and he's doing this thing, and I'm like, that's like if you're a sea diver, that's a crab. It's on a crab? What? He found a scorpion in the water, minus 6 meters, crawling around, perfectly happy on these rocks. Really, like this thing hadn't fallen in there, was drowning. This thing was happy. It was living there. And Jason being a bit of a gruff northerner, he's like poking it with his finger. And then he's like, it tried to get me. So it didn't get him, we'll be pleased to know. So yeah, I don't have a photo, but I've given Andy a description. I'm going to give him a proper written description as well, and we'll see if we can identify it. Yeah.
Anybody else? All right. I guess we'll carry on to the posse then. If you're new to the grotto meeting and don't know what the posse is, just follow the horde of cavers over there and join us for a beer. So thanks everybody. Thank you, Chris. Well done. That was really good. Thank you so much. Super enjoyable.
Good. I have no idea how long I was, but somewhere between the right amount of time and too long.
Yeah, I think people are interested. So.
Thinking about this, you've got a lead, air-filled lead past the first 2 sumps, right?
Yeah.
But my thought here is you've also demonstrated that you can do the first 2 sumps with open circuit.
Yes, you can.
Theoretically,
you could go through, push it, and come back out.
Exactly. It opens up that option.
It does.
And that might be something to point out maybe to you, to make sure it's clear that
you're right.
You got to sit over here with Bill Russell and me. I was the first one in there.
Yeah, that'd be really good.